Calvin Ridley to the Titans. Veteran linebackers head to the NFC East. We have movement in the tackle market with Jonah Williams heading to the Cardinals, plus the moves we're waiting on. We got a lot to cover today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase.
Bombshell yesterday. Total bombshell. The mystery team finally won one. You know how many times there's been a bidding war between two teams, and a mystery team is apparently just lingering in the background. In reality, the mystery team is just our attempt to drive the leverage up and the offer up between the two teams in the bidding war. And the puppet master behind the shadows actually existed. The boogeyman was real for both the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots as it comes to Calvin Ridley, because he landed in Tennessee out of left field yesterday on the first day of the league calendar year.
So very interesting dynamics with him not going back to Jacksonville. And certainly we've all been very aware of, if they extended him prior to the start of the new league year, it cost them a second-round pick, as opposed to they wait it out and you would only be a 3. My question is for Jacksonville, why was this such a high priority? You just paid Gabe Davis like he's going to be a meaningful contributor for your football team. You have Christian Kirk, you have Zay Jones, you have Evan Ingram, you signed Devin Duvernay. Like, why did you have to throw that money at Calvin Ridley? I know he was good for you. He 1,000-yard season, all that, but like, when you signed Gabe Davis, didn't you kind of like make this choice in some way?
I don't think so. They shouldn't have. It should not have made the choice for them. And in reality, I think we both probably would have preferred on paying
100%
in the price point that he got versus paying Gabe Davis half that money.
But don't you have to detach yourself from your own personal beliefs about Gabe Davis? The Jaguars think differently of Gabe Davis. They think he's going to be a volume player for their offense.
Do they? Because I'm sitting here
if you're going to pay him $13 million a season, you better.
But look at the other wide receiver contracts that were given out. Kendrick Bourne got 11 per.
He was
3 years
on a heck of a path, man. He was going to have
he
a
never
big
had
year.
more than 900 receiving yards in a season. Not a volume guy. Darnell Mooney's always been a 2. Goes to Atlanta behind.
But he
Kyle
becomes
Pitts.
the fourth option in your passing game.
Right.
You're paying
he got
$13 million
he got the same deal Gabe Davis did.
Probably lower down the totem pole than that. Honestly, there's chemistry with Zay Jones. We can't overlook Travis Etienne in the passing game.
Correct. So I don't think he is a volume player.
Well, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Nobody should be paying these contracts to a 2.5 wide receiver, but that's the market rate for a wide receiver. So that's what they get. But I guess my argument is Calvin Ridley would have been a volume target in your passing offense. Maybe you want to have the balance. Apparently they wanted to have him as a volume player because they were very in on the market to get him back.
I don't know. How much better would that football team if they just had Calvin Ridley and not $13 million a year going to Gabe Davis? And then apply $13 million to a corner or a defensive tackle.
Right, that could have got you just numbers here. Sheldon Rankins, didn't he get 2 for 26 like last night? It's like that's the stratosphere of an interior defensive lineman that you could have potentially signed.
Okay, he is a Tennessee Titan. So
Right.
fair. We should talk
To
about
be
that.
fair, we've probably already exhausted our quota of talking about the Tennessee Titans. So.
All right. When is this going to end?
Never. Never.
Right.
We're just as bad as the national shows with our disrespect.
You're one guy didn't like our
It's
Titans.
not my words. I didn't say it.
I couldn't care less about those comments. The Tennessee Titans signed Calvin Ridley. Is it 4 years, $92 million?
Mm-hmm. Another big dub for David Mulgeta yesterday.
He's raking, man. Dude's raking.
Killing it. He's killing it.
Raking. So now we have this new look Titans offense with Brian Callahan that now features DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley. They just brought back Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Of course, they have a first-round pick invested in Treylon Burks. New look backfield with Pollard to go with Spears. You like how this is coming together?
I've been surprised how aggressive they've been. But with that said, I think you look at the perimeter play for this team, and you probably feel pretty good about it. And I mean, the skill players offensively, which should not be surprised that was the strategy when you heard Brian Callahan talk at the Combine. I think you think about the perimeter on defense, and you've got some really likable players with McCreary as a good player, good young player. Chidobe Awuzie comes in as a free agent. Maybe this is the year it comes together for Caleb Farley, but you probably have another need for another corners just to be safe. You have a couple good defensive linemen in Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. I think the front seven needs work. I think that's what surprises me. I look at the roster and I say, your offensive tackles are in dire need. Like, you might need 2 starting tackles. I know they've got a lot of recent investments there between Dillard and Petit Frere as a 3rd-round pick, and Jalen Duncan is a 6th-round pick, and Radens is a guy who's bounced around, right? I think you can look at Skoronski, Cushenberry, and Brunskill and feel good about what you have on your interior trio. But I think you probably, if I'm being honest, knowing that it's probably going to break some hearts in Nashville, I think you need 2 starting tackles. And I think you need to overhaul a lot of this front seven, where Kenneth Murray got a 2-year, $18 million contract. He's comfortably the best linebacker on the roster. The rest of the interior defensive line with some of the outgoing free agents, that's where they've got their work cut out for them. But there's parts of this that you look at and you do like a lot. You get really excited, especially what they put around a young quarterback.
Yeah, I think the skill players around Will Levis, and now they brought in Mason Rudolph, Kyle Crabbs, which I sent you a text message. I'll go public with this. I'll go public with this.
This is Joe Marino's opinion.
This is Joe Marino's opinion. Oh God, Titans fans are really going to light us on fire now. Good Lord, maybe I shouldn't say this. Who cares? I like Will Levis. I really do. Like, he was a prospect that I liked. All right, I like him. I predict that for at least one game in 2024, Mason Rudolph will start the game by a coach's decision. Brian Callahan, it's a timing-based offense. Will Levis,
was not Will last year.
No, not at all.
There was a lot of feast and a lot of famine with Will last year.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the nudge towards what it was with Liam Cohen's offense to kind of get that stabilized.
That's a good point.
And if that's the case, great. But I would generally agree Will's style of play will have to transform versus what it was last season. Fit the offense.
All right, the Patriots don't get Calvin Ridley.
The Patriot way. There's nothing wrong. We need more of the same.
Dude, they had all the money.
We're going to strike out on every significant free agent we're tied to.
Okay.
Matt Judon for the 3rd consecutive year is going to recruit everyone on Twitter and not get a single one of them to come to the team. He had Juwan Bentley was clowning him. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see this.
There's a Patriots fan that was like, Matt Judon's the worst GM in league history. He never gets anybody he tries to sign.
It's true.
Juwan Bentley was like, no lies detected or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. They're all getting their paychecks in New England, but man,
that's right.
Man. All right. All right, we got more to talk to here in just a moment. The offensive tackle market finally has some movement, some linebackers, some veteran linebackers on the move. We'll get to that here in just a second, so be sure, stick with us. You shouldn't have to worry when you're looking to buy tickets for your next big event. Well, you don't have to, because Game Time is here, and it's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices. They give you a view from your seat and a best price guarantee. I mean, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome, super easy to navigate. I love that they give you flash deals. I also love that when you buy a ticket from Game Time, they send it straight to your phone, so you don't have to dig through the emails to find it. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So another one of the teams that's been fairly active thus far has been the Arizona Cardinals, where they've made some interesting signings of Justin Jones, got 3 years, 30 and change, I believe. Sean Murphy-Bunting got a decent deal. They bring in DJ Dallas to complement their backfield. Mac Wilson transplants from New England, potentially contending for a starting linebacker role. And then the big domino yesterday was they cut DJ Humphries, who suffered a season-ending injury against Philadelphia at the end of the year.
Yep.
And signed Jonah Williams. And it was really fun because there was like a 10-minute stretch where everybody, after they just announced they were cutting DJ Humphries, everybody was like, the Cardinals are picking an offensive tackle. We might get Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Chargers at 5. And then they signed Jonah Williams and they say, oh, okay, they just swapped out tackles. They're probably still going to pick wide receiver that spot at number 4. But Jonah Williams, coming from Cincinnati, gets 3 years, 30 for a pretty decent size.
2 years, 30.
Yeah, that's what I meant. 2 years, 30. So $15 million APY.
Yeah.
It's a pretty significant investment when you consider what, like, Orlando Brown Jr. got 16 to replace Jonah Williams at left tackle in Cincinnati last year. It's like not a small deal.
Yeah, he did well for himself and played out of position. And I'm curious, in Arizona, you'd like to think Paris Johnson's probably they're playing at left tackle, so maybe he sticks at right tackle. You know, I think there's probably a path if you ever want to get there with Jonah Williams that he could play some guard. But I think Jonah Williams comes out of this a little better than I thought he might after the transition. And you know, I thought 2022 was a down year for Jonah. But yes, I think it's nice to finally get some movement in this offensive tackle market, right? We hadn't seen it to this point. I mean, Jermaine Illuminor going to the Giants, 2 years, 14. What else did we get? Chuk Secor for 1 year, $4 million with New England. Right. There's not really been a lot going on. I think George Fant made his return to Seattle yesterday.
I didn't catch the terms on that.
I don't have the terms on that as either. I know it's a 2-year deal. I didn't catch any of the terms.
I'm seeing if I can floating around producing this.
Producing. So we know it's a good draft for tackles, a pretty modest free agent crop of tackles.
That's why.
Who are the tackles out there that are overly appealing?
I mean, Tyron Smith's out there. Is he just waiting on his bag from the Jets if they get desperate? Or Jets, speaking of tackle movement, the Jets traded for Morgan Moses.
Yep.
When a day 3 pick swap.
Yep.
Yesterday. So that at least addresses their need there at tackle for a little bit. Trent Brown's out there. I'm low on Trent Brown. I know not everybody is. Donovan Smith. I mean, these are, yeah, but you know, like, these are still starting tackles. We see this annually. There's a demand. You can't have enough good tackles. There's teams that have no good tackles on their rosters.
Yeah, but you didn't really just name any good tackles.
I named tackles with starting experience, which is better than the alternative.
They're Band-Aids. I don't know. I think those guys might have to wait.
So if you had to guess who signs, I'm going to read you the names. Probably the 5 best tackles that I have on the market right now. Who signs before the draft? Tyron Smith, David Bakhtiari, Donovan Smith, Trent Brown, Mekhi Becton.
Visiting the Bengals, right?
I believe so.
That'd be the biggest pair of offensive tackles in the NFL history between Brown and Becton. Yeah, there's no question. That'd be the biggest ones.
So who signs before the draft there?
Becton. And who was the guy you said just before him? Trent Brown.
Trent Brown?
Yeah, I think those two guys. Everyone else has to wait.
Okay. Linebackers are not waiting. We're pretty much tapped out here, aside of Devin White.
$100 million is coming, buddy. I'm sure of it. Be patient.
So Bobby Wagner, 1 year, $8.5 million to go to Washington to pair with Frankie Louvu and Dan Quinn's defense. Which I guess when you consider it through the perspective of Dan Quinn, you get pretty excited about that linebacker duo, right? What they're capable of. I know you're lower on Bobby with what he has in the tank, but I know you're higher on Frankie than I am. So I think aggregation-wise, we're pretty good about this linebacker group as a podcast.
It's probably not a great sign for Jamin Davis, right?
No. Yeah, it's a good call.
Who was kind of like an ascending young player. I wonder if they trade him. I wonder if that's a move somebody would make.
And if not, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a Willie Gay contract next offseason.
Yeah.
Willie Gay signed 1 year, $5 million in New Orleans. And then who was the other linebacker movement that we had?
Kendricks, Mike Zimmer. You forget Mike Zimmer's the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. That's the thing right now.
He sniped the 49ers for him, too.
Oh, can we go back to Washington real quick? There's a point I wanted to make there. They also signed Jeremy Chin, and you know what Jeremy Chin's doing. He's the Marquise Bell player for that defense.
Yeah, the Marquise Bell, some of the, J-Ron Curse,
100%.
Glorified linebacker.
Yeah. Which is all the more reason that I don't think Jamin Davis has a role here.
But I like that quite a bit for Jeremy Chin.
Yeah,
if we were,
it's an unenviable role, man. Come on, like Marquise Bell had to do some tough work.
It is, but if Jeremy Chin was ever going to reignite his promising early start, because he was good his first 2 years and then fell out of favor there in Carolina, with Dan Quinn, with what he does with big safeties, is the spot to do it.
Yeah, I like that for him. So I wanted to get to that before we talk about Eric Kendricks, who's with Mike Zimmer for the Dallas Cowboys. You studied him a little bit more than I did for coming out of his Chargers tape.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's there's mileage there for sure.
Yes.
You think he can be serviceable for Dallas?
I think it's a nice return for Eric Kendricks when you consider the year before the Chargers, he was with Minnesota, and that system was not particularly kind to Eric Kendricks. So I think for the Zimmer defense, I think that can get Kendricks back into his sweet spot a little bit more as a player and what he has in the tank, but he's fallen off more than Bobby Wagner has as far as perspective of like former high-level linebackers that weren't the biggest guys but could like run and do it all. I think the regression has been steeper for Kendricks, and I think it's been exacerbated a little bit by the scheme that he's been in the past 2 years with the Staley/Ed Donatel defenses.
Yeah. Well, both those guys, Kendricks reunited with Zimmer, Bobby Wagner reunited with Quinn. So interesting way for them to kind of probably close out their respective careers.
Right.
We had some fun stuff with the defensive tackles. Arik Armstead's released, which is a heck of an addition to the free agent class.
Yeah.
I know he has some injuries over the last couple of years. He's third.
Had a knee in the playoffs, I believe, too.
Yeah. So that's something to be mindful of there. But we get Sheldon Rankins to Cincinnati. That feels like an awesome signing for them. Like they've needed an interior rusher. Zach Carter has not materialized for them at all. And this gives them, if they were to bring him in, I think this would give them a lot more juice on that interior defensive line, which I think they need in terms of rush ability.
No love for Neville Gallimore to the Dolphins, huh?
Well, I thought maybe we'd say Maliek Collins going for a 7th-round pick to San Francisco, and then
that's
and then,
a great
of course,
ad.
Miami Dolphins legend Neville Gallimore.
Because Maliek Collins, for that Texans front last year, He's one of their more consistent performers inside.
Yeah, he's a good player.
And I think there's certainly a drop-off from Armstead to Maliek Collins, but I think there's a pretty high floor of consistency with Maliek Collins that you're going to get when you can still consider all the other disruptive players that San Francisco has up front. They signed Leonard Floyd, right?
San Francisco did, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so you've added Leonard Floyd to the outside pass rush group. They brought back Kevin Givens. They've got Javon Hargrave, and now Maliek Collins. Like, they're going to roll deep up front, and they're going to be just fine, which is an impressive transition for them that they needed to facilitate because of their multi-year cap outlook as things currently stand.
They've done a good job with some of that throughout their life cycle.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Helps to have the last pick in the draft be an ace performer in your offense as your quarterback and get you a rookie contract for several years of like less than $1 million per, but that's neither here nor there.
Very, very helpful. All right, we're going to talk about the moves we're waiting on. Some of the big fish still out there, so be sure to stick with us. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer.
The best player left on the free agent market is whomst?
Ooh, the best player left. Oh, man, that's a fun question. Justin Simmons or Arik Armstead? I know you only wanted one. I'll go Armstead.
Okay. I think from a pure skill perspective, it's still Tyron Smith. I don't think he's the most attractive free agent left on the market because of his age and his injury history. But I think from a skill, just pure how good he is at what he is in a vacuum, I would pick Tyron Smith.
It's a good way to frame the best remaining players. I think those guys are in the conversation. I just feel like Tyron Smith, you're right. Like he was unbelievable last year. There's such a maintenance necessary there.
Yes.
Yeah. It makes me nervous.
Like not practicing during the week.
Yeah.
Some guys could do it, like tip of the cap if you're able to do that. I can't imagine, right? Like not practicing all week and then going out there on game days. And like Tyron Armstead was the same way for Miami. So it's these older athletic tackles as the springs in the levee start leaking. You do all you can to just try to get through as many games as you can.
I think that's what makes him most valuable to Dallas, though, right? Like they kind of know the drill.
Mm-hmm. They know how to manage that.
Yeah, but if they don't want him back, and they're moving slowly.
I'll throw another name out there, since you gave two very graciously for everyone gave two. Watched a lot of Seattle for Jordan Brooks, and Quandre Diggs can still really go.
It's a good one.
He is all over the field. He doesn't quite have the same ball hawking as Justin Simmons, but I think Diggs has a little bit more of that dog in him than Justin Simmons does as far as like a tackler and getting down in the line of scrimmage. So if you're looking for a guy who will be all over the field for you, Diggs would be the other name that I would invoke. And I guess that's what makes it very interesting since you have two safeties in the top four names that we've mentioned, in spite of what is still a deep safety pool when you consider experienced starters like Tashawn Gibson and Deshaun Elliott. And this is at least as of the last time I updated my board, and Jordan Fuller and Julian Blackmon and Cameron Curl are still out there.
Yep. There's more if you want to keep going. Eddie Jackson's still out there.
Eddie Jackson, J-Ron Kearse. We saw Rayshon Jenkins came off the board to Seattle yesterday.
Yeah, I think Jordan Whitehead back to Tampa.
Which is a nice – I like Whitehead's game quite a bit. I know we've gone over that already, but the last couple of weeks. But I like him. And to go back to Tampa is a nice development for them.
DJ Reader's still out there. I know he's visiting the Lions, and boy, would that be a heck of a pickup.
No, that can't happen. That cannot happen. Could you imagine short yardage with Ali McNeil and DJ Reader?
Be tough. Be real tough, man.
End up on inside shoulders of the guards.
Yeah, dude. So, and Reader, obviously some injuries this past year, but man, he's one of those difference makers when he's on the field. Kendall Fuller and Stephon Gilmore at corner. You're looking for a vet.
Clowney's visiting the Queen City today.
Yeah. It's funny. You don't see a lot of teams hosting, but it feels like Carolina is. And that's probably because these players are like, man, we got to go see what you're all about.
I need to see what the heck this is all about.
What the hell's going on here? But there's money, so we might take it. That'd be an interesting spot for Clowney because does anybody? I think the Panthers roster just looks so bad to me. Obviously, he'd be there immediately become their best pass rusher. They don't have any pass rushers. So the opportunity would be there, and back to where he played his college ball at South Carolina. I think he's from Rock Hill, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty close to Charlotte. But man, yeah, it's that wouldn't be a great. I mean, especially because you feel like Clowney'd been kind of on this 1 year, $10 million path, and then he had to take a very modest deal to go to Baltimore. Had a great season, and he's going to parlay that into, well, I'll get my money, but we're not gonna be winning any ball games.
Yeah, I might just, especially if you're willing to wait like he has been in years past, you could probably get comparable 1 year money if you wait. Get post June 1st where teams have money that opens up.
Yeah.
I think the only other name that I have kind of in the stratosphere of any of the names that we've mentioned is Kevin Zeitler.
Yeah,
I'd include Connor Williams, but there's an injury asterisk there that
right.
I think it has really diminished and will continue to diminish his market for the time being.
So still some good names out there, but the big tidal waves have come and gone, right? And you feel that desperation that some teams have to go kind of get those guys they got to have, and those dollars get really big. But I think we're finally at the point where the value is going to start showing up. There's still a lot of good players. It takes all 53 guys, right? It's not every player's the Patrick Mahomes or Chris Jones or Aaron Donald, right?
Sometimes you got to sign a Saran Neal.
Sometimes you got to sign a Saran. How can we sprinkle him in? Is there any others we got to get to? Ahmed, can you bring him in at some point into this conversation?
Sometimes you got to sign a Ty Johnson,
Sometimes you got to sign a Ty Johnson, right? Meaningful players for your roster. So, oh man, good players left though.
Is there anyone you're surprised hasn't come off based off like reputation? Like I know Chase Young still hasn't come off the board. Is that surprising to you in the midst of?
No, I think he's complicated.
Okay, that's a good way to put his profile.
Might be Kendall Fuller. You have an experienced starting corner that's played in multiple schemes, that has versatility, that has good tape. You can take away the football. Somebody go sign Kendall Fuller and get yourself a really nice answer at cornerback.
Has Adoree Jackson signed?
No, he's still out there.
That one surprises me a little bit too.
Coming off a down year, but yeah, I mean,
it's that corner. It's just the corner market is the new tackle market, where it hasn't really moved. And when the top guy comes off and it's a 3-year, $30 million contract because he plays nickel, that doesn't help the cause, right?
Well, yeah, that's a good way to put it as well.
So we'll continue to play the wait and see game. And maybe some of these teams are trying to pry L'Jarius Sneed from Kansas City too. I guess that's the interesting subplot for the lack of top movement in the corner market is
good point.
I don't want to sign Stephon Gilmore if I could trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Lots still playing out. And make sure you keep it locked in right here. Locked On NFL Scouting. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. But we are out of here. Talk to you all again tomorrow.